Settle down, brother. This is the Quarter Report powered by ENC.com. South Africa's a movie. Welcome to the watch party. Just a few minutes ago, as I record, we released today's episode of the Quarter Report. As you know, we released a brand new episode every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Today's episode was on General Mkhunazi's 8 bombshells that he dropped on Parliament's ad hoc committee yesterday, including exposing Jacob Zuma, Becky Cele, Glynis Breitenbach, and more. And at the end of today's episode, I finished by saying this: I hope that tomorrow will not have bombshells. That'd be so cute. Have a good day. Well, technically, these new bombshells are still dropping today, not tomorrow. Because since we finished that episode at 12:46 p.m., I texted James and Eric the news that Shadrack Sibiya's house was being raided. And then James responded with the phrase, "Holy f***." I'm pretty sure they're going to bleep that. And then we found out about Hangwani Maumela's house being raided, search and seized. Then we found out from Cedrick Nkabinde, the chief of staff for current police minister on suspension, Senzo Mchunu, that last night police came on Fani Masemola, National Police Commissioner's instructions to raid Cedrick Nkabinde for his gadgets, as he calls them, and they intended to raid Senzo Mchunu and search and seize his gadgets, laptops, and cell phones this morning, even as General Mkhunazi and National Police Commissioner Fani Masemola have been testifying this week. Fani Masemola is testifying in front of the ad hoc committee right now as we speak. So this is an emergency podcast on an historic move of raids, search and seizures against some of the most allegedly criticized, the most allegedly exposed people for criminality and wrongdoing by Masemola, Dumisani Khumalo, and General Mkhunazi. Right. It is now 10 to 4 p.m. as we record. Shadrack Sibiya in the last 40 minutes has spoken to the media after his house went through a search and seizure raid. We have also heard from his lawyer, who was notified today on what potential corruption charges Shadrack Sibiya had his house raided to investigate. Going to tell you those. We're also going to talk about Hangwani Maumela's Lamborghinis that were seized and what luxury art and paintings to the value of more than 820 million rand. And as we record now 9 minutes to 4, Cedrick Nkabinde, the chief of staff for Senzo Mchunu, has just spoken to the press about what he said was police officers raiding his place in balaclavas looking for him last night and physically assaulting his brother who was there as they tried to find out where he was. We're going to tell you everything that you need to know about how all these players are interconnected and why all of these guys are so upset, because Cedrick Nkabinde made the point that he at least argues that his gadgets were being pursued and they were trying to take away his cell phone and his laptop, even though he was working through evidence that he had to defend himself and clear his name and Senzo Mchunu's name and Shadrack Sibiya's name in front of the Madlanga Commission and the ad hoc committee, that the police want those gadgets to find evidence against Mchunu and Nkabinde and Sibiya, but their view on it is that it's a move by their enemies to take away devices on which they have proof of their innocence the other way around, and they say the timing is suspicious and targeted. Okay, I'm going to start with Cedrick Nkabinde because as much as Shadrack Sibiya has been the biggest story today, because we were waiting to find out whether or not he would actually be arrested today, Cedrick Nkabinde just spoke on behalf of himself, connected to the police minister Senzo Mchunu, who is, for all intents and purposes, the biggest wig, even though he's bald, in this story. Someone always comments on our whiteboard about how this is really just like a story of bald people. Like that's the common factor, is all of these bald people being implicated in crime. So Cedrick Nkabinde spoke a few minutes ago. He's the chief of staff for Senzo Mchunu. He was named by General Mkhunazi earlier this week in front of the ad hoc committee. Cedrick Nkabinde said to the assembled media that last night, balaclava-wearing cops conducted a raid on his flat, and when they only found his brother, they physically assaulted his brother and then forced his brother to take them to an estate where they thought Cedrick Nkabinde might be, because they were trying to get hold of Cedrick Nkabinde's phones and laptops. to gather evidence on one or other raid that they believed was justified or had evidence or a warrant or permission from the state based on available evidence already to go and raid and seize Cedrick Nkabinde's gadgets and Senzo Mchunu's gadgets. This after just yesterday, and we spoke about this in our first episode today, just yesterday, General Mkhwanazi said that they didn't yet have evidence of corruption against Senzo Mchunu, but they had enough noise, enough dodginesses to justify continuing investigations into Senzo Mchunu, and that they will scrap and dig until they find gold as they investigate Senzo Mchunu's financial records and that of a trust fund connected to him. So these are all connected. This is all unfolding, happening right now. General Mkhwanazi also this week said that arrests were imminent, right? And then Cedrick Nkabinde said that after, as his brother was being assaulted and he was trying to ask these cops questions, he said, "Who sent you?" And the cops said, "We're here on behalf of National Police Commissioner Fani Maumela." Now, look, I don't know if cops actually in real life answer questions like "who sent you?" It kind of sounds like cops would be trained not to say that. They would just be trained to say, "We're here to execute a search and seizure operation that has been ordered for us to do based on available evidence that SAPS has collected." But let's assume that the cops did say that to Cedrick Nkabinde's brother, and let's assume that it is Fani Maumela who sent them, the National Police Commissioner. As we know, Maumela is in the camp of Mkhwanazi and Dumisani Khumalo from Crime Intelligence. They all say that they have been undermined and people in SAPS have been trying to take them out and stop them because they have come to realize the rot in SAPS, the corruption, the political interference and the rest. And they and the enemies, the alleged criminals, want those three neutralized. And so there's a fight in SAPS right now, but Fani Maumela is still the National Police Commissioner, so he would have the power to send and issue and permit and incite search and seizure operations. And then Cedrick Nkabinde said that the same cops in the balaclavas, in the same cars that went to his flat last night and allegedly physically assaulted his brother and were looking for him and his devices, were outside Senzo Mchunu's residence this morning. And although they couldn't gain access to the police minister currently suspended's residence, they tried to. And so what Nkabinde argued is that this is, and Sibiya said similar, and we're going to get to Sibiya now, is that this is pressure and intimidation, the attempt to try and get gadgets, devices with evidence on them from Senzo Mchunu and Cedrick Nkabinde to stop them from using evidence that they say they have on those devices to prove their innocence by taking those devices away from them. Of course, I'm sure that the police will argue that they were actually seizing those gadgets to try and get evidence to support their corruption investigations the way that they've done with Vusimusi Katmatlala's many cell phones, which have now, the evidence from that have underpinned all of these investigations, right? We saw Dumisani Khumalo go through WhatsApps between Brown Mokhotsi and Katmatlala, screen grabs from Katmatlala's phone of messages sent on the messaging app Signal between Brown Mokhotsi and Senzo Mchunu and the rest. And the argument from SAPS would be, well, now they all know that they need to delete their phone records, right? Now they all know that they need to destroy the evidence, even though General Mkhwanazi said yesterday, we have the technology to be able to even see your disappearing messages, your once viewed messages anyway. So that's what Cedrick Nkabinde literally just said. Now, what did Shadrack Sibiya say? Shadrack Sibiya's house, the media wrapped up early doors because there was reporting that an arrest of Shadrack Sibiya is imminent. His lawyers received a notification of that this very morning. And we watched from the outside through different journalists reporting, trying to wait and find out whether or not Shadrack Sibiya was going to be arrested today. It seems like today was another search and seizure operation, we assume, from the same sting that is happening in many places, right? Because it's also apparently Cedrick Nkabinde's flat and Senzo Mchunu's, one of his places of residence. So just before we started taping this, Shadrack Sibiya finally came outside and addressed the media. He said many things. I'm going to start, though, with what his attorney, Ian Levitt, just said. He told Pule Letwiti Jones from ENCA that the process to challenge the legality of the search and seizure operation is now underway. Levitt says the operation will definitely affect Sibiya's preparation for the ad hoc committee as his devices have been confiscated. The search and seizure warrant also mentions defeating the ends of justice, corruption, money laundering, and racketeering. So it's not just defeating the ends of justice over potentially taking away those 121 case dockets from the Provincial Killings Task Team in KZN. It also is about corruption, money laundering, and racketeering. Sibiya says some of the investigators at his compound are from KZN and that he now fears for his life. Sibiya actually said a lot more than that. Sibiya said that his colleagues had betrayed him, including Fani Masemola. He said that he is now fearing for his life. He said that he and his family are in danger. He said that there have been unmarked vehicles monitoring him and driving past his house. He says that everyone who's been haranguing him from different units is from KwaZulu-Natal, suggesting that this is Mkhonazi's guys. And he says that it's sad, in his view, the extent to which the PKTT or the cops from KZN can just essentially do what they want. These are all things that Shadrack Sibiya just said in a few minutes while he was addressing all of the assembled media. And he was saying also that he's constantly under pressure, being made to be confused and surprised, to try and knock him off of his game as he prepares to submit documentation for a disciplinary hearing within SAPS and for his appearance at the Madlanga Commission and the ad hoc committee and all the rest. So this is all happening at the same time. The police are in possession of Shadrack Sibiya's electronic devices. They didn't, as far as we know, get Nkabinde's. They didn't, as far as we know, in this sting, this raid, or this set of raids, they did not get Police Minister Senzo Mchunu's devices either. And now let's go to Hangwani Maumela, who is also connected to all of this. Now, this is from the Tembisa Hospital stuff. This is the SIU. This is the Hawks. They have moved against one of his homes, which is in Sandton. You've probably seen them by now, but if you haven't, 4 Lamborghinis. They're blue, just like Jeff Wicks said in his book about Babita Deokaran and the Tembisa Hospital. Once again, investigative journalists being vindicated even after targeted bot campaign attacks to try and besmirch their reputations and propaganda against them on places like Twitter and in certain other areas of South Africa's digital, landscape. And they took over 800 million rands worth of assets, including paintings and artworks and the rest. That's part of their continuing investigations into Tembisa and into that grand theft and racketeering. Because remember, Hangwani Maumela's syndicate is the biggest one in terms of money stolen allegedly so far that the SIU's been able to talk about. And remember, yes, Hangwani Maumela is the nephew by a previous marriage of President Cyril Ramaphosa. And remember that President Cyril Ramaphosa once in Parliament said, "I do not know this gentleman." It's so historic, particularly Shadrack Sibiya, because Shadrack Sibiya is the link connecting point between so many big claims, right? So Shadrack Sibiya, Mkhonazi and Masemola and others have said has improper close relationships with allegedly criminal kingpins, right? Shadrack Sibiya was the one who allegedly went with Senzo Mchunu's instruction, defied the orders of his own boss, Fani Masemola, when he was Deputy Police Commissioner, actually working, not on suspension, and took away those 121 case dockets from the Provincial Killings Task Team. They were left to rot on his desk. Masemola and Mkhonazi have said that it's possible or likely that Sibiya took those dockets to stop continuing investigations with live search warrants within them. And remember, Mkhonazi said that now that they've got the dockets back, there will be many arrests very quickly. But the other thing that they said is that Sibiya probably wanted those dockets to go through them to see what evidence the PKTT had on these criminal kingpins already. And we know from all of these other WhatsApps swirling around that people like Brown Mokgotsi, people who are connected to all these people like Kat Matlala and KT Molefe, they knew classified police intelligence. They were, it seems by these WhatsApps, passing classified police intelligence on that they should not have known and had access to two criminal kingpins like Kat Matlala. Sibiya really could lead to Mchunu, and the fact that they got Sibiya's phone is significant, even though they haven't got the devices of Senzo Mchunu and haven't got the devices of Nkabinde, as far as we can tell so far. And remember, again, that Maumela and all the Tembisa stuff is connected to this because who benefited to the value of at least 13 million rand from the Maumela syndicate at Tembisa? Vusimusi Kat Matlala. 3 of the companies, the shell companies that got, I think, 13-ish million rand from Tembisa, they are connected to Vusimusi Kat Matlala. So this is all happening at the same time, people, all of these different raids. And that is why we have just done this emergency podcast. James, has anything happened in the 15-ish minutes since I started recording?
Can confirm nothing has happened since then, but I do just want to say that this is not setting a precedent. We generally like to sit and stew on things for a while.
We have lives.
But this is actually just too much. And I think the word historic is the correct word, because I was saying to you as we were preparing for the show, it feels like when Ramaphosa went off to go have that meeting with Zuma to tell him that he's no longer going to be the president.
Yes.
It feels like that scale of action. And I think in a world, justifiably and thankfully, in the world of justice and in the world of politics, things move very slowly. But things to move this quickly can be very scary, which is why we need to be very diligent in this moment.
Totally. And the main reason why I think that this emergency podcast was justified is that it all happened at the same time. Just this morning, we were looking at Maumela's Lambos. That's what we were doing this morning. Then Shadrack Sibiya. Then for a little while, when they called the press conference for Senzo Mchunu, people thought that Nkabinde was calling it because Senzo Mchunu was going to speak. And then he arrives late, it starts late, we turn it on and it's just Nkabinde. And then Nkabinde says that not only did they try to raid him and he alleges physical assault on his brother, but they tried to search and seize the police minister. The police minister, somebody being raided as part of the attempt to expose a mafia state. Again, imagine if this was happening in America, we would all have our jaws on the floor and go, this is the biggest crime scandal in history. We should treat what's happening in South Africa with the same gravitas and level of respect and seriousness and shock, because it is absolutely insane what is happening.
Along with that, this is obviously extremely, I don't want to use the words exciting because that sounds like it's purely positive. This is extremely intense, this moment right now. So what I really hope is that in the coming days, we all have the time and the patience to process this and figure out why this all happened at the same time. This all seems to have happened on the same day. Well, no, it did happen on the same day, but why it all happened on the same day, and why it feels like there was such an unannounced swoop now. Yeah. And how will this affect those people like Mchunu, like Sibiya, going to the Madanga Commission?
So here's the other thing that I have to be lame about and remind you of, is that there is a civil war in SAPS right now, okay? So remember, Dumisani Khumalo is on bail for corruption, alleged corruption charges that he says is a stitch-up. Fani Masemola is under investigation. There are parts of SAPS who are going to come before Madlanga and present what they say is evidence to prove that they have not been maliciously targeting these guys. So we can't just go now, oh, this is the good police automatically. It probably is the good police, They're probably doing it for good intentions. But you need to remember that different factions in the police force are moving against each other. Khumalo is out on bail. Masemola is under investigation. Like the police is literally cracking open and cracking in at least two parts. So what we're probably going to see now is whatever they found on Sibiya's phone. Look, General Mkonazi says he can even see a once sent viewed WhatsApp message, and so I don't think him going through his files and deleting his WhatsApp profile is going to have done him much good if he did that. But now I wonder, because now that we know that SAPS had search and seizure warrants for Mchunu and Nkabinde, are they just going to go find them now? Are they just going to go find where they are and say, give us your cell phones? We don't know that. We're going to have to wait and see to find out. But we really now have to be mature and go, cool, all this happened. Let's wait to see what they find out. Let's wait to see what the response is going to be. I never do this, but today we have to do this. I'm going to tell you what time we finish. I'm going to finish recording now so that you know exactly at what point in South African history I stopped talking about this. Because it's very possible that by the time this episode comes out in maybe an hour, many more things may have happened. It's also very possible that by the time this episode comes out and you see it, many more things would have happened. This is the nature of breaking news and this much breaking news. But I want to end with one quote from Senzo Mchunu's chief of staff, Cedrick Nkabinde, who said this on ENCA just now. He said, "We have our side of the story. The picture will be totally different." And that's what I mean. We are about to hit the stage where all the people who've been accused and spoken about for weeks are going to come with what they believe is evidence to exonerate them and show us that actually the bad guys are Maumela and Khumalo and Mkhwanazi. And we're going to have to hold everything that everybody shows us and see where this folds. So the time of recording, at the end of my recording now, is 16:09 p.m. South African Standard Time, plus 1 or 2 at the moment, in the year of our Lord, whoever your Lord is, the 9th of October, 2025. Emergency podcast done. We'll talk again tomorrow.